Welcome to day 6. Your homework, you got packet page 33 to 34. We're going to go over the homework, do 4 examples of things, and then you'll do the quiz the second half of the period. So each of these in one are both in center radius form. Remember, your center is the opposite sides of what's in the parentheses there, so positive 5, positive 2. And your radius is the square root of what it's equal to, because that's equal to the radius squared, so square root of 49 is 7. In B, opposite signs for the center, negative 3, positive 11. Your radius is square root of 12. So you could either write square root of 12, or if you do menu number factor, that's 2, 2, 3. So 1, 2 goes out front. Now in a multiple choice, you would have to be comfortable knowing that they could have it expressed either way. So if you're writing square root of 12 and you don't see square root of 12, you might have to simplify that. In 2, we're going the reverse. So we have negative 5 and 4 for the center, so that's x plus 5 parentheses squared plus y minus 4 parentheses squared, and then square your radius to get 9 over on the right. Similar idea in B, x plus 2 parentheses squared plus y plus 5 parentheses squared, and when you square a square root, it's just the number underneath. So square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. 3, it was a similar idea. You just had to identify the center and the radius from the picture first. We had a radius of 4 and a center of 0, 3. So you could have written for the x part either x minus 0 or x plus 0 squared, and that would be correct in a free response question. But just note in a multiple choice, because x minus 0 is just x, they're going to have it written as just x squared for that part. And then similar idea in B, we've got a radius of 2, you got 7, negative 2 for the center, and you see there your equation. Going to 4, we wanted to graph this. So our center was negative 2, negative 4. When we take the square root of 16, radius is 4. So what we wanted to do is plot our center, go 4 up, 4 down, 4 left, 4 right, and then use your compass to draw the circle. And they asked us to label the center, so stick those points there, and then I just wrote the r equals 4 for the radius. So for this one here, start out, write your left side of the equation with the center. So we really have x minus 0 squared, y minus 0 squared, but that's just x squared, y squared. And to find the r squared, just sub in the point that they want it to pass through. So when you sub in 3 and 4, you get that r squared is equal to 25. I would say don't even bother getting r by itself, because the right side is going to be r squared. So in the end, we just have the x squared plus y squared equals 25. In B, write out the left side of your center radius form of the circle. So opposite signs, remember, x plus 4 squared plus y plus 3 squared equals r squared. Then fill in the other point it's going to pass through, the 2 for x and the 2 for y. Neaten up the left side, you get r squared is 61, so that's just what goes on the right side of the equation then. And then we had to complete the square. So to start out, getting the constants over on the right, so we subtract the 76 over. Group the x's together, group the y's together. And then we need to do our b over 2 in parentheses squared. So we should have 14 over 2 squared for the x. So that would be 7 squared, which is 49. Add that to both sides. Here you would have 12 over 2 squared, so that's 36. Add that to both sides. On the right, we end up getting 9. Now for factoring on the left, it'll be in the parentheses will be whatever you squared. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So because 7 is what was squared, that's why we have x plus 7 parentheses squared. In the y's, 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 6 is what we squared. So that's why it's y plus 6 squared. Sometimes these questions will also ask you to state the center and the radius. This one did not. It just wanted the circle. Similar idea over in part B. Subtract the 61 over. Half of negative 10 squared will give you 25. Because negative 5 got squared, that's why it's eventually x minus 5 squared. Half of 20 and then squared is 100. 10 is what we squared, that's why it's y plus 10 squared. Make sure you add the 25 and the 100 over to the right, so it's equal to 64. All right, we're going to do 4 examples on page 31 and 32. So we've seen our center radius form of a circle. Standard form of a circle is when you get everything on one side, you have the x squared and y squared come first, then your x and y parts, and then the constant. So that's what's called standard form of a circle. So in number 1, this is given to us in standard form, and they want us to put it in center radius form. Well, the way to do that is to complete the square. Before we can do that, let's get 1's in front of all of our squared terms. So we're going to divide everything by 2. When we do that, we're going to get x squared plus y squared plus 18x plus 10y plus 12 is equal to 0. We then want to move all of our constants over to the right. So we're going to subtract the 12 over. Now when I rewrite the left side, we want to group the x's and the y's together. So I'm going to write this as x squared plus 18x plus, and leave a blank. We've got to figure out what goes there. Then plus y squared plus 10y plus, and leave a blank. We've got to figure out what goes there. So to figure out what goes in our blank, we want to complete the square. You always do your b over 2 in parentheses squared. Your general quadratic type setup is ax squared plus bx plus c. So the b is the thing that's in front of the plain old x or the plain old y. So in this case, I'm going to have, for the x's, 18 over 2 squared. Well, 18 divided by 2 is 9. 9 squared is 81. So we'll put 81 there, and whatever you add to one side, you've got to also add to the other. For the y's, we're going to have 10 over 2 squared. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 squared is 25. So we'll have 25 here, and we'll have 25 there. If we add those up on the right, we get 94. And on the left, we're going to have our x part squared plus our y part squared for our center radius form. Remember, the thing that should go in your parenthesis with the x and the y is whatever was squared. So we did 18 divided by 2 to get 9. 9 is what was squared, so we should have a plus 9. If it had been a negative 9 that was squared, you would put a minus 9 in, just whatever the sign is. So over here, we had 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 is what was squared, so with the y, we'll have a plus 5. So that's how you decide what goes in the parentheses. It's a shortcut, so you don't have to factor it out. And this particular question asked us to state the center and the radius. Well, remember, your center is just the opposite signs of what's in the parentheses. So we'll have negative 9, negative 5 as our center. And our radius is just the square root of what we're equal to. So we're square root of 94. Now, we should do a menu number factor for that just to check. When you do your menu number factor, you're going to find that it is 2 times 47. Well, nothing happened twice, so radical 94 is the best we can do for the radius. So the next question is basically the reverse. They give us the center and the radius, and we want to end up in standard form. Well, we start out, we put it in center radius form. So we'll have our x part squared plus our y part squared equals our radius squared. Well, since our radius is 7, 7 times 7 is 49. So we'll be equal to 49. In our parentheses, remember it's the opposite sign of the center. So we'll have x minus 4 and we'll have y plus 3. So start out by putting it in center radius form. To get it in standard form, we're going to have to multiply it out. So when you square something, it's really writing it twice and multiplying it out. So let's write twice that x minus 4's and the y plus 3's. And then we're going to have to FOIL each of those out. So x times x will give us x squared. X times negative 4 is negative 4x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times negative 4 is plus 16. A similar idea for the y's, we'll get y squared plus 3y plus 3y plus 9 is equal to 49. Well, to be in standard form, we want the x squared and y squared coming first, then the x's and y's, and then the constants. Well, we only had one x squared, so we'll start with that. We have one y squared. For our x's, we've got negative 8x. For our y's, we have plus 6y. And currently for our constants, we have 16 and 9, so that will give us 25, and we're equal to 49. So we're just about in standard form. The last thing is we need to make sure it's equal to 0. So we got to bring the 49 over with the other constant by subtracting it over. And this is then the standard form of our circle. If we move over to page 32, this is not in either standard or center radius form. It's not standard because not everything's on the same side, but we want to eventually get it into center radius form, state the center and the radius. So we're going to have to subtract the 10y over because we want only the constant on the right. And as I rewrite this, I'm going to leave my spaces. So x squared plus 2x plus blank plus y squared minus 10y plus blank equals 55. So we need to do our b over 2 and put it and then square it. So we're going to have 2 over 2 squared for the x's, and we'll have negative 10 over 2 squared for the y's. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So we'll add 1 to both sides. Negative 10 over 2 is negative 5. Negative 5 squared is 25. If you're doing that in the calculator, make sure you're doing it as negative 5 in parentheses squared, because that's what we want. It's different doing that. That's saying do 5 times 5 and then negate it. The parentheses is say doing negative 5 times negative 5, and that's what we're looking for. Make sure we also add that 25 to the other side. So if we add up the right side, we would get 81. And on the left, we're going to have an x part squared plus a y part squared equal to our 81. Well, in with the x should be whatever we squared. We had 2 divided by 2, which is 1. Since 1 is what got squared, we have a plus 1. With the y, we had negative 10 divided by 2, which is negative 5. Negative 5 is what got squared, so negative 5 is what goes in our parentheses. Our center, they wanted us to state our center and radius. Our center, we have the opposite signs of what's in our parentheses. So negative 1, positive 5. And our radius is just the square root of what we're equal to. So square root of 81 is 9 because 9 times 9 gives us 81. All right, one last example. We're doing the same thing that we just did in the last question. So we're going to subtract the 137 over to this side, and we're going to add the y squared. We're going to add the x squared, and we're going to add the 24x. So over on the right now will just be negative 137. On the left, let's put things in order, grouped together by the variable. So we have x squared. We now have a plus 24x plus blank. We'll have to figure out what goes there. We'll have plus y squared plus 6y plus blank. So we've got to do our b over 2 in parentheses squared. We'll have 24 over 2 squared. Half of 24 is 12. 12 times 12 is 144. So we'll put it in our blank and also add it to the other side. For the y's, we'll have 6 over 2 in parentheses squared. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared gives us 9. So we'll also add it to the other side. When we add up the right, we're going to get 16. And on the left, we're going to have an x part that's squared plus a y part that's squared. We did 24 divided by 2 to give us 12. Then 12 is what got squared, so we would want a plus 12 in our x parenthesis. We did 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 is what got squared, so we want a plus 3 in our y parenthesis. And then to finish it off, our center is the opposite signs. So we have negative 12, negative 3. And our radius is just the square root of what we're equal to. So the radius is just square root of 4. So you'll see some more work with circles on your homework. And we'll also now take the quiz.